Hello, I'm David Safin, Associate Professor of Digital Art and Media here at St. Vincent College. This is my office and these are my office hours. As you know, this is a show where I like to bring creative talent into your living rooms and show you some of their work. Today, my guest is Tim Oxenreiter, but before we get to Tim, I wanted to plug letterboxd.com, Letterboxd. It is kind of social media for film lovers. I have a channel. It is letterboxd.com/dsafin. It's a place where I list all the movies I've seen. What have I seen in my life? What am I looking at now? You can make lists. It's a really good place to engage film lovers and to kind of see what other people are doing, what their tastes are. So if you get a chance, check out letterboxd.com. And if you're on it, please connect with me. So again, letterboxd.com. So Tim, are you on Letterboxd?
I am not yet, but I'll have to join. It's pretty neat.
It is pretty cool, and we'll be friends on it.
Sounds good. I'll send you a friend request.
All right. So Tim Oxenreiter, St. Vincent College grad in 2016, another person who I had the privilege of knowing and having in class. And again, back when you were here, this wasn't my office. I think it was across the hall, but those are details that aren't really significant. So knowing you and knowing how long you've been doing this, I'm sure everybody who's watching this would be fascinated by your story. So can you really give us your tale? Like, when did you get interested in storytelling and filmmaking, and then how did you end up where you are now?
Absolutely. First of all, just an honor to be here. So thanks for having me. So I've always been passionate about filmmaking since a young age. I got my first camera, I think I was 11 or 12 years old when I got my first camera. So I started by just making fun YouTube videos with my friends. Did a lot of sports highlight videos going into high school. That's when I got really into the weeds in regards to filmmaking. Learned a lot more about video editing during that era. And I was just always interested in doing something creative with my life. I was never really the type of person who, I couldn't see myself just working a typical 9-to-5 or, crunching numbers. That just didn't really fit my personality. So I made it my goal after graduating college that whatever career I would pursue was going to be something in the creative field. I wasn't sure if that was going to be graphic design or video production. Went on to St. Vincent, had the pleasure of having you as a teacher, which was awesome.
Okay.
And that's when I really got into filmmaking. I mean, I was into it as a kid, but this is when I really took that next step and learned about lighting, learned about audio, and really learned about the philosophy of storytelling. And from there, I knew it's what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. So I studied at St. Vincent, graduated in 2015, went back for a second degree in graphic design in 2016. And then I had the privilege of interning at NFL Films right after graduation. That was awesome. Dream come true experience. But ultimately, NFL Films is in New Jersey, and I'm a Pittsburgher at heart. So I wanted to come back home with my friends and family. So I came back to Pittsburgh, worked at an advertising agency doing video production for probably about 6-7 years. While I was at the advertising agency, I had a side business called Ox Productions, where I did music videos, wedding videos, any sort of, freelance video production. So over the years that grew, and it got to the point where I was more busy doing work for Ox Productions than I was at my other job. So I made the difficult decision to leave my advertising job and go full time with Ox Productions about 3 years ago, and it's been full go ever since.
So I know, like you mentioned, you're a Pittsburgher at heart, and I know that somebody who has your talent, your drive, and your motivation sometimes can feel pressure to have to leave. Oh, I need to go to New York. I need to go to LA or Chicago. I need to go to one of these places where it's maybe a little bigger, maybe a little bit more competitive. But you made the decision to say, I'm committed to this place, and that you're not going to feel the pressure of saying, if you want to be great, you have to go somewhere else. You want to do it here. So can you talk about why that it's so important to you that you stay around here?
Yeah, I mean, I was born and raised in Pittsburgh. This is where all my family and friends reside. So, although from 9 to 5 when I was working at NFL Films in New Jersey, it was great. It didn't feel like work, but on the weekends or after work, it just I felt like I was missing something. And being at that young age, it was early 20s at the time. I would see on social media all my friends hanging out together, and I just kind of got a sense of FOMO. I remember that that summer was the summer that the Penguins won one of their Stanley Cups, and it would drive me crazy going on social media and seeing all my friends, outside of PPG Paints Arena celebrating, and little things like that just started to stack up. And then I kind of took a step back and realized as great of an opportunity it is at NFL Films, I think I can make my own path and do it in my hometown where my loved ones are. So it certainly wasn't an easy decision, but I'm glad I made it.
So how much does your work get out there? I mean, I follow you on Instagram and LinkedIn. Everywhere I can follow you, I follow you, and I always see your beautiful aerial shots or these sort of sizzle reels. So how much of a following do you have right now in the city?
A decent following. Whenever we first started, we specialized more so in funny skit type videos. So a lot of videos for YouTube and Twitter, but it's very difficult to monetize those types of videos as fun as they are. So I kind of slowly made the transition away from those fun skit videos into more corporate work. So a lot of my following is probably knows me from my past life with all the skits that I've made probably 5 or 6 years ago. We still do have a base a pretty decent following, but it's primarily more geared towards corporate video production. So I don't know if I answered your question, but yeah,
No,
we have a decent following.
I think you did in a way that maybe I could see why you don't think you did, but you did, because it sounds like eventually we all have to grow up. And sadly, like, oh, the fun stuff it's still there and we still want to do it, but we have to pivot to the stuff that that maybe is going to pay the bills, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But speaking of those fun videos you made, I know that you did some viral stuff that involved like Home Depot and I think Wendy's, and you also made a really I know popular and dynamic video about pong shots, sort of trick shots that you did two at St. Vincent, one when you got here and one before you left. So what was it that kind of sent you down that path of like, I'm really interested in very specific web style videos, because that's a niche that not everybody really knows how to tap into, but you were really ahead of the curve on knowing what web audiences wanted. So how did you find that inspiration?
Yeah, I think it kind of dates back to, when I got started in video production. I think I first started learning how to edit actually right after YouTube was created. So YouTube gave me the platform to share my work with friends and family. So every video I've made pretty much since a young age, I ultimately uploaded to YouTube. So I always was kind of on that platform. Didn't really have that big of a following until I got into high school and made Steeler videos, Penguin highlight videos, and that kind of coincided with some really strong playoff runs for both of those teams. So naturally, that gave me a significant following. And then I think once I got more into filming when I was in college, I knew I had the platform and I had some followers, so I wanted to try some different things. And it was just one of those things where, a lot of people remember the successful videos, but there's a lot of videos that you think are gonna, go viral and they end up getting, 30 views. So it was just one of those things where it was almost like a game to us. We would come up with content and post it and just see where it would go. And we're fortunate enough to have a couple that went viral.
I'd be happy with 30 views.
Uh,
When I hit 25, the confetti starts to fly when I get there. So I don't know about that. So you always seem to have a like your finger on the pulse of like pop culture. that a lot of the stuff you did, I think you kind of drew inspiration from things that were, on television or film, like ESPN, or I know like something like The Office or 30 for 30. How do you still find inspiration on the stuff that you watch, or is that something that you don't do?
No, it certainly is something I do. Obviously now, making corporate videos and documentaries, it's a little bit different, but I think my background of NFL films really helps me. I think my strongest suit is my storytelling ability. So I just think having that background of, learning at NFL films and learning how to tell stories just kind of inspires me and helps me, with making content.
I've heard you, talk about is this idea about technology. Technology seems to be where everybody thinks this field is at, that if you want to thrive in it, you have to be a tech person first. But I think that you are somebody that has reversed that it's all about story first, and then the tech will come with it. And where did that come from? I mean, how did you find that place where you realized story is first and technology is second?
Not to hype you up too much, but I think it all goes back to your classes at St. Vincent, because prior to attending St. Vincent, my videos, I don't want to say they necessarily had a story, but I was more focused on cool editing tricks or cool camera angles. And then whenever I got to St. Vincent and really started learning about the philosophy of how to tell a story, that's when it started to click. And then my time at NFL Films really reinforced that. So I think those two paired together really made me look at film in a different way. And it kind of transformed my my approach to video production.
I didn't know that was going to be your answer, so I don't want people to think that I was like.
No, it honestly, yeah, that's when it all started.
Well, that's nice to hear. I that is the approach I take. I get frustrated when I hear places promoting themselves based on the stuff. Hey, come here and you can use this drone or this RE camera or red camera. And I'm like, well, what's the point? I always say it's like having a really fancy car, but you don't have anywhere to go.
Right.
I'd rather have a place to go than have the fancy car, because the tech changes so quickly, but also if you're inspired, the tech, I think, will take care of itself. So I'm glad to see that you're still doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes me think of this project that you just finished, a documentary about Pittsburgh. What is it? Steel to Science, Pittsburgh Steel to Science,
Mm-hmm.
that is going to find its way to WQED sometime in 2025. Where did this idea come from?
Yeah, so I mean, as I alluded to earlier, big fan of Pittsburgh, Pittsburgher, born and raised. So I've always been fascinated with, Pittsburgh's history as a steel town, and just living in the area and being a drone operator. I have a whole library of different Pittsburgh shots. So I really wanted to venture into some longer form content. And, the more I started to dive into Pittsburgh's history, I started, realizing that there's a story there. There's, although this was once a steel town, we can kind of piggyback off of those roots, and are now transitioning into, a pioneer in medicine and AI and technology. So it was just kind of one of those things where I wanted something long form to work on. I wanted to tell the story of Pittsburgh, and I wanted a place to show off some great shots that I had a library of that otherwise probably wouldn't have seen the light of day. So it was just kind of a combination of those three items. And then also in January and February, that's typically our slow period. So just wanted something fun to work on during those months. And that's kind of how it all came about.
So I know we have a 5-minute clip so people can get a sense of the story you're telling and your approach to it. So why don't we just take a little time and check that out?
From the ashes of steel, Pittsburgh has emerged as a city of resilience, proving that transformation isn't just about change, it's about reinvention. Now, Pittsburgh stands tall, not in steel, but in science, technology, and the promise of a future full of possibility. From steel to science, from grit to greatness, this is Pittsburgh and a story of an iconic rebirth.
When people visit Pittsburgh for the first time, I think for a lot of people who haven't been here, they still have in their mindset that Pittsburgh's an industrial city.
Some people would have an image of an old, rusting industrial town that has seen better days.
When you come to Pittsburgh from the airport and you make the drive in through the Parkway West, there's a point during that, if you're paying attention, you get a glimpse of the tops of some of the skyscrapers downtown, give you a little foreshadow of where you're headed, but you don't quite understand it.
And you're winding through the hills. You have no idea that there's a city right here. So you go through this tunnel.
And it all opens up.
Many of us refer to it as the oh wow moments. They come through that tunnel and it's like, oh wow, what a beautiful city. It's not what I expected.
Once you're through that tunnel, you end up going into the city's neighborhoods, and it's there where the true life and the character of the city exists.
They built a city where you wouldn't expect one, kind of perched on the sides of the hills. And as a result, you have all these unique neighborhoods that were kind of geographically isolated.
All of these neighborhoods brought something to Pittsburgh that was special, and it still has that quality.
And we've got bridges that connect those various different neighborhoods.
The Art Commission wanted the city to have bridges with beautiful views. As a result, no matter where you are, you can walk on our bridges and look out and see that captivating beauty of the area. We have this defined Pittsburgh style where architecture is just as important as anything else. In fact, some of our bridges are not even in the ideal locations, and that's to satisfy architectural requirements. I mean, what other city does this?
The city was smart enough not to overdevelop the slopes. It's allowed us to maintain green space that you can see even from the downtown area.
I was overwhelmed by how green Pittsburgh is. The trees with their canopies formed this sort of green carpet that just seemed almost overwhelmingly profuse. The buildings of the city are always surrounded by the trees.
They do provide a beautiful backdrop and provides a nice contrast to the skyscrapers in downtown.
We're always enclosed by these walls around us that contain us and define us. And I think that defined edge actually helps create the character of the city, because when you look out, you always see the boundaries of this city and you feel at home because you're in this environment.
The city is not a city of a large grid. It is a city that the streets and roads, they all twist and turn, and how we move and live within that is pretty unique.
Our topography creates the opportunity for even better design, hiding and then revealing the view, creating changes in elevation, unexpected reveals, showing different points of view, all telling the story of the context of the site. You really can't copy that.
One of my favorite things is just looking out the window and being able to see the row houses climbing up the hillside and the rooftops and the chimneys.
And it's like the immigrant cities that the people came from. If you go to Italy and you see the hilltop towns, you can sense the same feeling of houses stacked along the hills.
It has a European flavor of the European immigrants who came here in the 17 and 1800s, early 1900s, and were building these beautiful structures.
A lot of those buildings have really beautiful craftsmanship type of detailing to it, carving of stone. A lot of it is very heavy and sturdy, kind of strong.
There's Federal style, there's Neo-Gothic, there's Tudor.
Romanesque buildings like the county courthouse, and that set a tone. But as time's gone by, the city has started to incorporate other products that it was known for, like steel and aluminum and glass. And so we see that reflected in many of the newer buildings today.
U.S. Steel builds the tallest steel building. PPG, Pittsburgh Plate Glass, builds magnificent glass castle-like structure. Alcoa Aluminum builds the first major aluminum office building.
That mix represents our history. The city's eclectic quality is indeed one of its biggest strengths. More buildings, more varieties, more thought, more character.
Okay, so that was Pittsburgh, Steel to Science, a clip from Tim Oxenreiter's new documentary. So could you go into the process? Like, how long have you been working on this? You know, how did you find people? How did you get to that point where you kind of exited pre-production and got into production?
Yeah, so it all started, I'd say, early January. Just kind of started by building an outline. Doing a lot of research on the history of Pittsburgh. I mean, I know a lot about what's happening now with science and technology, but the history part I needed to brush up on a lot. So I did a lot of research, watched a lot of other videos, not necessarily documentaries, just different videos of Pittsburgh. And from there, I kind of started building a wish list of participants that I wanted to interview. So I came up with a list of maybe 20, 25 people to reach out to. And to my surprise, most of them actually agreed to do it. I did not think that it would be that easy, but it was. So from there, we just started, getting interviews set and came up with some interview questions and really asked a lot of questions, but really formed the story in post. So I'm a big fan of capturing more than you need, just to give yourself some leeway in post-production. So really just had open dialogue with, I think there were 12 or 13 interviewees. And then from there, it really just all came down to post-production and getting some stock footage rights. As mentioned, I had a Pittsburgh library of drone footage at my disposal. So I used that a lot. But yeah, it all just started with an outline and on paper, and then from there reached out to some guests and got the ball rolling.
All right, so I mentioned Letterboxd earlier before. Again, it's a great place to have conversations about film, and one of my favorite things to do on Letterboxd is to make lists. My favorite Pixar movies, or I'm going to rank the Star Wars films, or these are my favorite sports films or documentaries. It's just a fun place to play and to keep your mind thinking about films. So that brings me to the way I like to end these shows, which is this little questionnaire that I ask of all my guests. I just want to make sure that you're ready to go.
Ready to do it.
All right. So first and foremost, what movie makes you laugh?
I'm a big fan of the 2000 to 2010 era of comedy. So really, any one of those movies, Wedding Crashers, Dodgeball, Old School. But if I had to pick one, I would probably say Old School. That's probably my favorite comedy. But I mean, it never gets old. I throw it on way more than I'd like to admit, when I'm just cleaning up around the house or doing odd jobs. So it's a really funny movie to me.
It is funny that I just watched Old School recently, and it's one of my favorites from that. That was like the one that kicked off that movement. It was like Old School and then Starsky and Hutch and I think Anchorman. I mean, that was just a great run for comedies. Dodgeball, like you said. Yeah, I watched it recently, and I realized I hadn't watched it in a long time because they mentioned that they're all like 30 years old. That Luke Wilson's like, I just want to get some sleep. I'm 30 years old. And I thought, 30 years old, these guys are kids in this movie. It really does change your perspective on it. But Frank the Tank is always going to be up there as one of the all-time funniest characters. All right, so that's what movie makes you laugh. What movie makes you cry?
I'd have to say Rudy. Rudy is one that I always shed a few tears. Even if I just go onto YouTube and watch that final scene, I cry every time. So Rudy is one without fail that will make me tear up.
Yeah, sometimes movies in that sports genre I think people can label them as manipulating our emotions, but I don't care. Like, I love the end of that movie when it just swells up and they're chanting Rudy, and the coach for some reason doesn't want to put him in. I think that was made up, but eventually he does put him in and they go crazy, and Fortune does his clap.
That music track too. That's one of my favorite tracks of any movie of all time. So I think that plays a big role in it as well.
I back in the old days of CDs, I bought the CD of the Rudy soundtrack, and so it's on my iPhone. So sometimes when I'm driving, I just put it on and I'm just listening to that driving. Like, you can see him just getting plowed, and I'm listening to that music, and it really does get you ready for work in a way.
Great. No, that's great.
All right. So what movie scares you?
So I'm actually not a big scary movie guy. I'd say a movie that kind of freaks me out, I guess you could say, is Inception. I don't know if I'd use the word scared, but that's a movie that I'm kind of a little uneasy whenever I watch. So that's probably not a traditional answer, but that's one that comes to mind.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't watch horror movies. I always say I think life can be scary enough that I don't need other things to scare me. But sometimes I wonder if I should rephrase it to, like, what movie unsettles you or unnerves you or kind of makes you squirm or uncomfortable. So I think that's an appropriate answer when you start thinking about things in ways that it's taking you down a path maybe you don't want to go. So I think that's
right. Yeah,
an answer. All right. So finally, what movie inspires you?
You know, it's funny. I could use the Rudy movie for this one as well, but I'm not going to. There's so many sports movies that come to mind. If I had to pick one, I'd say probably Miracle. It's another one of my favorite movies of all time. So if I ever need to be motivated, or I know when I played sports growing up, I would always throw that on before big games. So that's probably the most inspirational movie that comes to mind.
Yeah, another one where they play up the manipulation of the one guy with the vision everyone's against, and I don't care. I just love it. I just love how that no matter how many times they repeat that formula, it still works, especially with a script like that and you know, real life events that we all know. But Kurt Russell's so good in that movie.
Right.
And I think I've mentioned to you before, but I do teach a sports on film class here. I'm teaching it in the fall, and so I know you would have loved that class. So if you're ever on campus, I'm doing it Tuesdays at 2:30. Feel free to guest lecture. Come on in. I know I'm going to show Miracle, so like you'd be more than welcome to come in and sit and watch with us.
I'd love that.
All right, so that's really our time. I could sit and talk sports movies with Tim Oxenreiter for hours, but I think that might be a little too much for the channel. So again, thank you so much, Tim. It's always really good to see you and good to talk to you. I hope I get to see you in person sometime soon. But you know, unfortunately, we have to part ways.
Well, thanks for having me, Dave. It's always a pleasure, and can't thank you enough.
No problem, buddy. All right, everyone. Office hours have now ended, so I'll see you next time.